This is question number 5 of homework 4 for chapter 12, problem 12-10. We provided with information about target debt equity ratio, WACC, and tax rate. And part A is if cost of equity is 15% here, so we know the cost of equity. The question is, what is the pre-tax cost of debt? We know that actually let me open my notes so I can write down something here, so it's better to illustrate. WACC, so excuse me for my somewhat not so beautiful writing because I'm just using my mouse. I didn't use the touchpad pen. Our WACC equals RB, which is the cost of bond or cost of debt, times the market value of debt, B, over the market value of debt plus the market value of equity, and then times 1 minus. Actually, I think it's better. So let me erase this and rewrite this to B. B over B plus S. So this is the market value based debt ratio, and then times 1 minus the tax rate, and then times RB. So RB here is simply the pre-tax. And when we multiply by 1 minus the tax rate, then the whole thing here becomes after tax cost of debt. And then continue to add the market value based equity value ratio. So S over B plus S, and then times RS. So that's simply the the formula for WACC, weighted average cost of capital. Now I'll come back to this question. We provided with WACC. Actually, we know WACC and we know debt equity ratio. So let me put down the information in my Excel. Why I choose Excel? You can use other tools like a calculator, financial calculator, or whatever tools you can find to solve this question. This question doesn't necessarily require Excel, but I like Excel because it can meet this. One of the big advantages of using Excel is that it can meet the rounding requirement very easily. For example, do not round intermediate calculations and enter your answer as a percent rounded 2 decimal places. That's very easy to meet because you can change the rounding number of decimal places very easily in Excel. So putting down the B over the information as given by the setup, the target debt equity ratio. Notice here it's debt equity ratio, but in our formula here, what we need is the debt value ratio and equity value ratio. So we need to convert this debt equity ratio into the debt value ratio and equity value ratio. So debt equity ratio is 1.3. And then the WACC, let me put down the WACC here. That's the 9.3%. And so once we know the debt equity ratio, we can figure out debt value ratio very easily. How do we do that? We can just use the because here what we care about is the ratio, so it doesn't hurt, it doesn't change the result if we just simply assume that debt is 1.3 and S is 1. If debt is 1.3, S must be 1, right? That will make B over S to be 1.3. So if B is 1.3, why don't I write down? I want to click the cell rather than hard code the value, right? So B over B plus S. Now B is 1.3. So click on this and S becomes 1. So that's B over B plus 1, B plus S. And hence S over B plus S is simply 1 minus this. Right? Because these two have to sum up to 1. So now we have solved out this debt value ratio and equity value ratio very easily. And the tax rate TC is 35, no, 38%. And for A, it's provided this is A, part A. So part A, the RS is 15%. And it's asking us what is pre-tax. Pre-tax, as we said, it's simply this RB here. Pre-tax cost of debt. What is this? So that's the question. And going back to that formula, if we know the pre-tax cost of debt, and because we know TC, right, 38%, and we have already calculated B over B plus S and S over B plus S, and we also know RS provided. So we can calculate our WACC. So that's if we know RB. Now, let me just show some magic. So let's say RB, let me assume it's 10%. I know this may not be correct, but I will show you how to get the correct RB after we have made this assumption. So now WACC based on the RB, let me call it WACC1. Now WACC1 based on the formula, right back to the formula, is B over B plus S times 1 minus the tax rate here, and then times RB. Yeah, RB here is assumed to be 10%. So let me just proceed with that assumption. Now the second part, S over B plus S, it's right here, and then times RS. So obviously this number may not match the correct WACC, which is provided by the setup, right? Because I simply assumed the RB to be 10%, and not necessarily, most likely it's not the correct answer. But what I want to show you is that I want to make this, I use a tool in Excel, which is called under data tab, which is called, and under what if analysis, goal seek. So by set cell, this B, that's my target cell, B10. Now this target cell, I want this target to be exactly the same as the 2 WACC, 9.30. So I want this to be 0.093, right? That's 9.3%. By changing what? By changing this RB, because that's the unknown here. And once you click on that, you'll see the result. And so now if RB turns out to be, so let me format this to make it a percentage. So you see that these two exactly match each other. Now if RB equals 8% rather than assumed 10%, so let me go back to the rounding requirement. Enter your answer as a percent rounded to 2 decimal places. So now I need to change the format of RB and make the percentage to be rounded to 2. You see the difference now, to 2 decimal places. Yeah, if I keep 2 decimal places, it's no longer 8%, it's 7.93%. So if RB turns out to be 7.93%, then this calculated WACC based on the information provided will be exactly equal to this true WACC, 9.30%. And this is how using Excel actually can help us to solve out one unknown equation. So let me just copy this number back. And I believe you should get rid of this percentage sign because Connect already give you the percentage sign here. So that's part A. Now let's go to the part B. If instead you know that the after-tax cost of debt is 6.2%, what is the cost of equity? So what's provided in part B is slightly different here. So what's provided in part B is we know the after-tax cost of debt is simply 1 minus TC times RB, right? So that's provided to be 6.2%. And the question is asking us now what is RS instead of what is RB in part B. So again, the trick to solve this question is the same as the trick to solve part A. We just assume, and let's assume again it's 10%. Okay, this magic number. Obviously, we know that magic number will not work, but it will eventually work if we use the WACC tool in Excel. So the WACC1, let me call that WACC2, just to be different from WACC1 in part A. So WACC2 is based on this assumption, here you have to be careful because what's directly provided is this after-tax cost of debt. So once you multiply by the weight on the cost of debt, which is B over B plus S, you shouldn't multiply, once you multiply this part, you shouldn't multiply by 1 minus the tax rate again. Because that's already 1 minus tax rate times RB. So that's done for the first part. And the second part, the weight on the equity, cost of equity, the market value based equity value ratio times the cost of equity here. Obviously, this since it's assumed the number, you can see that the WACC2 here may not match the true WACC, which is 9.30%. But again, I want to use the tool here, WACC tool, to set this B15, which is WACC2, to be exactly equal to 0.093, our target, the true WACC. By changing the cell, the change in the cell is this cost of equity here, and okay. And now you see, let me change the format to be consistent with this WACC here in percentage term. And I also want to change the format of cost of equity to keep 2 decimal places. You see the difference here. And I believe the rounding requirement here is the same as the part A. Enter your answer as a percent rounded to 2 decimal places. Yes. And now let me copy this number back to Connect and get rid of the percentage sign. And let's check our work. Yeah, good job. So I hope that this is another example that I have demonstrated many times how to use Excel to solve an equation with one unknown. I hope this can further help you to understand how the skill to apply that function.